I'm Cynthia, you know me, and I'm the host of the reality series CPS The Horror Stories. And I'm not an attorney or a social worker, but I'm a mom who struggled and went through a CPS horror story myself. And today I'm with Brad again. And the reason that Brad is on here again is because there are some things that he wants to share, not only about his case, but also for people who are going through the struggle, and then people who are watching others go through the struggle. So he's got some insight and some wisdom that I want to hear him say on here. So let's start with what you want to say about your case first.
Okay, I basically want to let people know, at the end of our interview last time, you asked me what kind of advice I would give to somebody, and I really squandered the moment. I didn't really know what to say, but I really want to go over today, like the links that they'll go to cover up a child's outcry and what they will do to the protective parent, and not just the protective parent, what they will do to the child to shut them up, what kind of links they'll go through and how the hoops they'll jump through just to shut a child up on an outcry. And I did not let you know last time, but this judge and this amicus attorney, we're fixing to go through all their names, and the opposing counsel tried to put a gag order on me when I started a petition, because I didn't know what else to do. And I never put my kids, I never put any of this on Facebook, ever. I wasn't on Facebook for 2 years, period. None. Not even for my own self. So I never wanted this out there, but when I got to where, like, my kids are in dire danger, like it's in grave danger right now, I had no choice. And as soon as I did, they tried to shut me down, and I beat them. I won an anti-SLAPP motion against them. So everything that I'm about to say is the same thing in my petition. All these names I mentioned, I can mention them because it's public record and it's part of my case. It's also factual. So that's why we won the anti-SLAPP. I'm not on there just saying stuff I don't know about people or trying to create gossip. I'm saying things about my case that are factual, and anybody can look it up in my case. Mm-hmm. When this started, I never even told you about my first arrest, about CPS getting involved the first time and how I knew not to let CPS get involved again. But I'll let you know, I was raising my son myself. He was mine. And this mother came down and let me know that she was getting out of the military and that she was pregnant again, and that we were going to be a family. And I said, absolutely not. That's not what's going to happen. I'm not having any part of that. I will raise another child, but we're not being part of a family. I told you before, I've already seen a lot of things with her that were very disturbing. As soon as I said that, she said that she was at my apartment at the time, and she said, never mind, this baby's not yours. And in fact, the little boy is not yours either. So we started getting into it about this. I already knew, like, I had this little boy from the second that I cut his umbilical cord. He was mine. So I know with everything that I have that he's mine. He looks just like me. He looks just like my 17-year-old daughter. I knew it was just her being her. The next morning when I woke up, there was police at the apartment, about 5 of them. She walked out in the hallway and I had no idea what was going on. A police officer came in to the apartment while I was feeding my son his breakfast and asked me why she wasn't allowed to leave. I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. She can leave anytime she wants. And he says, no, she's saying that you won't let her take your son. I said, oh yeah, she's not taking my son. She doesn't know anything about my son, but she can leave anytime she wants. So all the police officers came in along with her and explained to her that she was not being held hostage, and that's what she called. She was being held hostage by me. So they explained to her that that is not true. She's free to leave. She didn't make any allegations against me besides that, and they were on their way. This was a civil matter, and we needed to take care of it. As soon as they walked out the door, she pulled up a guy on Facebook, some guy that she said was my son's father, and that he didn't want to have children, and that's why she let me believe this was my child, and that she had a maternity test. I said, well, great, let's see it. No, I don't have it, it's in storage. I'm like, I don't believe you, you need to get out. She said, let's go get one right now. So we get in a car with my son and go down to Walgreens to get a test. And as soon as I get out to walk around the car, she locks the doors, jumps into the driver's seat, and she starts taking off. Oh yeah, it gets better. So while she's pulling out backwards, I'm walking in front of the car and I'm screaming for everybody, call 911. She's stealing my son. Call 911. Then when she starts coming forward, I think that she's going to stop when she gets to me, but she doesn't. So I lay on the hood and she pulls out in Fort Worth on Brian Irvin, and it's a busy road. It's not a neighborhood. It's a busy street here. And we're driving with me on the hood down Brian Irvin. I'm still yelling for people to call 911. A car comes up beside us and makes her veer off and stops her. And the police get there. Then, of course, when the police get there, I'm a big guy. She's a woman. They have no idea what's going on. So I'm treated pretty rough until we get down to the police station and people start finding out, oh, like, this is his child. He's the one that's been taking care of her, and she hadn't been in the picture, and this is the caregiver. And so everybody did what they were supposed to do. It all was good when we got down to the police station. Then 3 days later, CPS calls me and tells me to come in with my child. And that's when I told you they kidnapped him and they took him to Houston. So that was how this began. And when I came back and we got my Judge Wells, Judge Judith Wells in Tarrant County Family Law, she was assigned to me in 2015. And it's like a spider web. I cannot get away from this woman. I can't get out of there. She also assigned an amicus attorney that was going to be the investigative arm of the court over my children right away. So right away, I've got these two people. When we finally go to mediation, because that's what you have to do at first, we go to mediation and my amicus attorney that's supposed to be there for my kids is sitting in with the opposing counsel, Cap Borum. Children. This is how it's been all 5 years. They're always together. It's like these two attorneys against my attorney or against me. We go to mediation. So when we're in mediation, they're working this thing out, and she had been living in Houston. That's where we had to get her brought back from. It's from Houston back to Fort Worth. This mediator tells me that my apartment that's in my name, either I need to sign this apartment over to her, and I have 7 days to do it, or I'm going to drive every day, because right now my schedule is Monday, Wednesday, and first, third, and fifth weekend. So every day I was going to drive to Houston with my son and bring him back and drive back the next day. So every day we're going to be in the car about 7 hours, one way. Without one. And they were going to let my son do that. So I was forced to give her my apartment and move out in 7 days. That's how this began, right from the start. Then when we started going to court, this Lindsay Newell, this is the amicus attorney that was appointed on the case. This is the woman we can't shake either. She's the one that I'm supposed to go to. And right away, like I told you, there was abuse right away. There was something way wrong with him right away. Diarrhea, sleeping, strange marks. I was letting her know all of these. All the emails, pictures, everything else. She never came out to the house, not once. She never checked on them. And this is the investigative arm. This is who I'm supposed to call if there's any concerns. She never came to check, never. So then the beatings get to where they're straight up beatings. And my son is telling me. So now I'm letting her know, hey, these are not just black eyes. These are black eyes with him saying how he gets the black eyes. And he's very detailed. He doesn't have any kind of qualms about telling anybody. He'll just tell you. Still, never came out. Then we start having my daughter where she's sleeping 15, 16, 17 hours at a time when we pick them up. 6 p.m. we pick them up. We don't even see her face until 10 a.m., 11 a.m. the next day. She's out all this time. Plus, you've seen the pictures, horrendous stomach, horrendous. She was only 2 years old, and that little 2-year-old would lose about 4 inches in a 24-hour stretch from diarrhea. That's how much stuff she was giving her. Again, we have to go to the investigative arm, and she's doing nothing.
That is something I do want to state for everybody on here, is anybody who wants to write me a message and say that I need to do my investigation on these cases, I can say for a fact that I have seen everything, not everything, but just about everything in Brad's case. I've seen the reports, I've seen pictures, I've seen people's investigations and statements and everything. So for people who want to come on and state that this man is not telling the truth, I have seen the actual proof, documentation, truth, that this is true.
I seriously think that everybody in Fort Worth knows this is true. We've already had Sheriff's Department reach out to us that tells me they know this is true, but I have to go to somewhere else. So, yeah, It's crazy how much you have to defend yourself whenever you're trying to defend a poor little kid. So anyway, so she never came out during any of this. So we have an attorney. His name is Jeff Branch, and he's letting us know, like, man, I don't know what we're going to do about her. Like, you're just going to have to break down and take them to the hospital, take them to a pediatrician. So I did. And as soon as I did, Lindsay Newell, the San Francisco attorney, pulled me into court, and they got a restraining order against me. And then judge made a rule that I was not to take them to any more pediatricians. I couldn't call CPS. I couldn't go to outside help. Everything had to go through Lindsay Newell. So again, we start giving everything to Lindsay Newell until my kids being knocked out is getting so scary that my daughter, when she's having this horrendous diarrhea, won't wake up. Even while I've got her drooped over my arm, bathing her, I can't wake her up. So I finally tell my attorney, like, hey, man, I got to go to Cook's. I have to, man. Like, what, they have to get tested. I got to find out what's going on. Go down to Cook's, again, they kick us out. They won't test them. They won't test diapers. They won't test the blood. They won't test anything at all. And my daughter is knocked out at the time. And this is always with my wife, mind you. This is not just me. My wife is always here. And another thing I never let be known, my wife made every trip on these pickups, every single one. She drove all the way from Midlothian, Texas, to meet me over there before we ever picked these children up because we were so scared of her. So she made every trip, and she heard everything that those kids said whenever they get in my car. So this is not just me. This is what my son says, and there's a whole lot of people that know what my son says. So again, nothing happened, not even with Cook's Children's. And then this attorney, this Lindsay Newell, not the opposing counsel, but this attorney will take me to court and get another restraining order. She's done this to me several times. One time for me being a nutritionist, said that I only had healthy food in the house and I didn't have normal snacks like other people, chips and pizza and stuff. And they actually got a restraining order on that. Another time they got a restraining order over good fats, over giving him supplemental fats, over giving him probiotics, everything that's for a child and everything that is from a health food store. And again, my quackery. They took him away that time because of my quackery. One of those times, my daughter had an ear infection when I picked her up, and she tried to give me a prescription and the note from the doctor. So instead, I came home and put garlic oil in my daughter's ear, and it was just fine. Whenever they went back, no signs at all of an infection. And Lindsay Newell pulled me in court again to get a restraining order against me again for not giving my child antibiotics, even though in court it was proven there's no ear infection. What's the big deal if it worked? What's the big deal? But she took the kids from me anyway. So that's what they do. They take a little bit, a little bit, and a little bit to keep on scaring parents to just leave, to either leave or to give up or do something. So this got so bad when I told you that me and my wife had to pick these kids up like this all the time, that a great big black eye and a big knot on my son's head with him saying, Mommy did this with a spatula. Mommy hit me in my face with a wooden spoon. That was just a Tuesday. That became just a Tuesday. It came just like the same thing like when your kid says, oh, I need help with math tonight. We would have to drive home and grovel in that and just put him to bed, and that was just a normal night. We could literally do nothing. The court had my hands tied where the only person I could call was Lindsay Newell, and Lindsay Newell ignored everything. And then when we would show up, I'll tell you about my son's first outcry. He was only 3.5. And this is the first time that I knew that this was way, way, way worse than all these beatings that he'd taken, because all these beatings never broke him down. As soon as he got in the car, he was a confident little boy. He'd let us know exactly what happened. I would let him know how wrong that was, how what she was telling him, that he did not get those because he was a bad boy. He did not get those because that was his fault. Don't you ever believe that. That's not true. So we would just have to have that talk with him and go on with our day. And he was just fine. And one day when I went to go pick him up, I saw the second that I was driving up that something was really, really wrong with him. I knew before I even got there. And as soon as I got out of my car, he peed in his pants. That little boy's been potty trained since he was 11 months old, and he peed in his pants. And he was just crying like I've never seen him cry before. And when I picked him up, he melted in my arms. I stuck him in the back seat, and he had to be driving home with wet pants, just a mess. So my wife and I get him home, and we try to get him in the bath. And for the first time in all his life, he wouldn't let me take his clothes off. And then when I did get his clothes off, he kept trying to turn around where I couldn't see his butt. So I was trying to ask him, like, hey, man, what's wrong? What's wrong? Finally, my wife got the phone out and started filming it. And he made an outcry on the phone, plain as day. that he had been hurt back there and how he had been hurt. So we take that to court, thinking, finally, man, they're going to do something. Lindsay Newell had that video thrown out of court, and her exact words were, she wanted them thrown out in fear of it painting the mother in a bad light. Yeah, and the judge agreed with her. And then of all the pictures that we had, all the black eyes, the judge and the amicus attorney would sit here and look at them and go, well, I kind of think this black guy looks like this one. It looks like maybe he just changed the shirt and just took another picture. So they started just stockpiling these pictures where, no, we're not going to let these in. We ended up from 108 pictures, we ended up with 7 pictures that they allowed in. 7. That's what this amicus attorney and this judge does. So then we get to these recent outcries that I told you about. And this time, nothing was stopping us. Like I told you, we had a cop that was a great police officer, and he sat right here and he listened to me in a separate room. Then he went and listened to my son in a separate room, and he told me that I would not get run out of Cook's Children's this time. He was making a call, and he was going to sit there with me the entire time until the sexual assault nurse got there. My son was going to be seen today, and he did. For about 3.5 hours, he sat in that emergency room with me and waited until we went back. Then my son made an outcry, all good, and then we go to Alliance for Children the next day. That's where we do our forensic interview. It's the first time we meet Detective Rodriguez. This is a Crimes Against Children unit that's supposed to help us. And I asked him, I said, did my son make an outcry back there? I'm not back there. It's back there with a video camera. He said, of course you did. You wouldn't be sitting here. I said, all right. He told me we had a safety plan in place. He was going to start making some arrests, start doing his investigations. He understood what day my kids were supposed to go back and that they would be in touch with me. We go the entire week and don't hear a thing from Detective Rodriguez or Cynthia Allen, the CPS investigator. We hear nothing from no one. So finally, I'm calling him and letting him know, like, hey, man, kids are supposed to go back. You don't know this judge. This judge and this amicus attorney has been like, you don't know them. Like, they're going to take the kids from me. So what do? I can't tell you what to do. That's between you and the judge. But we have a safety plan in place, and your kids will be safe. So I let my children go back. And at this time, it was the summer, so it was a 7-day on, 7-day off basis. You can imagine dropping him off that time and having to wait 7 days. And sure enough, when we pulled up 7 days later, I knew damn good and well driving up what happened to him again. You could see it all over him. So as soon as he gets in the car, he lets me know, Mommy did it again. Mommy did this. He's letting us know what happened to him. So it is 6 o'clock when I pick him up, and by 6:08, I got a voice message going on to Detective Rodriguez that was not nice at all. I was absolutely livid, as I should be. Asked him how the hell this happened. How did the Crimes Against Children unit and the CPS let this happen?
Let's go ahead and tell people basically what was happening, because I know I know it's hard to say it, and I don't even like saying it, but can we say what it was she was doing? Because I know, but I feel it leaves it very vague. And
Yes. She was sticking her fingers. He was showing his thumb, but her fingers in his anus. She was sticking wooden spoons in his anus. And he would show me squeezing his penis and his balls so hard, Dad, so hard. That's what she was doing to him on top of these beatings that he was already taking. And he's told all these people this. He's told all these people this. This judge knows that.
That's what I wanted to say, is I read the actual reports that these people wrote, and it states what your little boy said without you present, that he's, number one, capable of labeling all of his body parts. He's capable of knowing, answering questions, knowing things, being able to complete sentences, complete a thought. So in his statements, it states what he's saying, and that he knows the difference. He's not just saying this because somebody is telling him.
Right. Yeah, people don't know what an outcry is, but an outcry is to a professional. And these are sexual assault nurses that are trained in this. This is what they do. So yeah, they take them off on their own, and they question them themselves and let the children talk. So those are not my words. And that's one of the things that this court keeps trying to get everybody to believe, that they're calling me a liar. That's not true. They're calling my little kid a liar. And they've been calling him a liar over and over and over and over. And everybody here knows it. This detective knows it. Everybody knows it. So on the second week that unbelievably this happened again, we go another full week without hearing from this detective or the CPS person or anybody. So I start trying to call this detective and I can't get a hold of him. So I find out who his superior is, a Sergeant De Hoya. So she calls me back, lets me know she doesn't really know what's going on with the case. She'll talk to him, she'll get back to me. Then that was it. Nothing. Didn't hear anything else back from her. So we get up on the Friday again where the kids are supposed to go back again. And this time we can't let it happen. So we get friends and family to come over to our place. We call the police department, tell them what our zip code is, and find out which precinct we go to. So we all went down there. A full crew of us went down to talk to the chief of police. We waited there. A lot of police officers were really, really nice. Everybody was helpful, except for the chief. He never came out. He only sent somebody else out to let us know that CPS was already closing this case that we were opening right now. They had already closed it. The one that I'm opening at this very moment is already closed. And they refuse to come out. And they can't do anything because it's a CPS deal. So everybody's always pointing fingers this way and that way. It's everybody else's job, yet nobody protects the children. So we have to leave again. But the police officers let me know outside, this is a civil matter. This is a civil matter. That's all it is. We can't do anything. So if I would not let those children go back, I wouldn't let them go back to that mother. And there's not a judge in their right mind that's going to do anything to you after those outcries and everything. So we did. And I sent Detective Rodriguez a text to let him know, hey, man, I'm not running. I'm at my house. The kids are safe. You can come by and see them anytime you want, but I'm not letting them go back to the mothers. Then we get to the next week. And right away next week, I'm given court paperwork to bring my children to court and to have a court date. So we show up and they take my children from me. And this is when we start having all these, now I'm on supervised visits and all this. They have done all this to shut my son up. They have taken every single person out of his life. My mom that he saw 2 to 3 times a week, he hadn't seen her in over a year. My wife that he sees, that he's lived with her since he was 15 months old, and like I said, 50-50, and hadn't seen her in over a year. My brother, they used to go fishing with and used to go hanging out with and used to go to the dirt track races. Hadn't seen him in over a year. Hadn't seen anybody in my family in over a year. Only I'm the only one that is allowed to go and see what they're becoming, their demise, how wrecked they are since they've been on these supervised visits, how different they are. I'm the only one that gets to see it. And here's a kicker. I can't take my phone with me. I can't take pictures of my kids. I can't record anything at all. I've got a whole list of things that I can't bring up with them, basically anything. I can't talk to them about their home life. I can't ask them if they're okay. I can't ask them if they've been hurt. I can't pull up their little shirts and look. They have shut my son up. He's a 5-year-old boy, and they've completely silenced his outcries. And that's what this whole thing is about.
Now, do you want to go ahead and bring up how it's happening to your daughter and also about the half-brother?
Yes, my daughter, she just turned 4. This has been going on with her since, I think she started getting molested probably about 9 months is when I really started seeing a huge change in her. When she was a baby, she showed the most disturbing behavior because unlike most babies, when they're really upset, instead of her wanting you to hold them and console them, she would run to a closet, just a little bitty thing. She would go to a closet and shut herself in a dark closet. Right now, to this day, she's got scars on her wrists and all over her ankles. And that's all she would do as a kid. She'd sit there and just pinch until she had blood. She'd pinch her neck, she'd pinch her face, she'd pinch her wrist, and she'd pinch her ankles all the time. As she started getting older, I started seeing like, man, this is something that she's not going to grow out of this. Like, this is disturbing behavior that she's not going to just come out of it. I can't just leave it be. So I would just scoop her up and bring her and just make her sit with me. And then you could feel like after about 15 minutes of sitting with me, she'd melt. And then she'd become a child again. and she'd want to be loved on, and she'd want to talk to you, and she'd communicate again. But when she's the other way, you can ask any, my wife has seen it the most. There's nothing you can do. You can't speak to her. You can't talk to her. You can't console her. You can't do anything to her. It's really, really, really disturbing seeing how my daughter is. My son, his beginning of his life was very different. He wasn't born into abuse. He had a great life with me up until this happened when he was 15 months old. My daughter was born into this. My daughter, right from the very start, we knew that she was giving her stuff to make her knocked out and to give her diarrhea, and she started getting bruises. And then right about the same time my 3.5-year-old was ruined, was about the same time when she really started this crazy behavior of just really, really hurting herself. And it still goes on to this day. My son just made an outcry on my last supervised visit. He found a piece of chalk. He was drawing on the concrete. And he drew this big stick figure. He said, "This is you, Daddy." Then he drew another little picture holding his hand. He said, "This is me." I said, "Oh, Daddy and Isaiah." And he draws something else. He said, "This is Roxy, our dog." He draws something else. And then he draws another person that's a little bit bigger. And then he draws another little stick figure on the end that's a little bit bigger. And there's a dad at this park. We go to the same supervised visits all the time at the same park. So we see this dad all the time. He has no idea I'm on supervised visits, but we see him. He's got a little 3-year-old named Larson. I play with him all the time. So when he gets through playing this last stick figure, this guy wouldn't know any different. He goes, "Oh, that must be your mommy." And Isaiah looked confused and kind of angry. He's like, "No, it's not my mommy. My mommy hurts me. That's Amanda." These kind of things happen all the time. And just like the old black eyes, I got to get in my car and got to drive off. I got to leave him in that situation, even when he's sitting there telling me, "Please take him home." And that's where I want to start telling people that they don't understand what this is like. All those people like, "Well, I just do this, and why just do that? And why don't you lawyer up?" And we have spent $500,000. Not many of you people have that sitting in the trunk of your car, I promise. So as far as legal ways, don't give me any more advice on legal ways, because there is no legal way. When you're dealing with corruption, you're dealing with corruption. As far as every other way, you name the avenues. You name every outreach that you can talk about child abuse. CPS, the head offices, Attorney General, Bill Zedler, his office was a lot of help until it got to the point where it was going to meet Bill Zedler, and then all of a sudden, no communication back. The mayor, the governor, the Department of Justice, the FBI. We finally, like I told you kind of last time, we finally had some good help from a Lieutenant Gabbert here at the Sheriff's Department here in Fort Worth. And then she got the roadblock too. The DA, Sharon Wilson, would not let this thing open back up. So she let me know, like, basically, we know they're being abused. This is horrific. This is horrid, but we can't do anything. We can't do anything because the DA, Sharon Wilson, is good friends with Judge Wells, and Judge Wells ain't letting you out of her spider web. So this does not work the way people think. It does not. It does not work where a child makes an outcry, and then you just think that they got an army around them, right? Like, that's what I thought. I thought a child makes an outcry, and an army comes around, and everybody makes sure this kid is safe, right? That is not at all what they do. They take this poor little child, and they throw them to the wolves. And anybody that can protect them, they take them away. And they tie your hands where you can't do anything, and then they threaten you. Or they'll throw you in jail like they did me. And they throw people in jail here at Tarrant County all the time for this, for going public. I'm one of the very few people that won this anti-SLAPP. I beat them. I sued them. And I won because everything's factual. So I'm one of the very few people that can come forward and talk about this. People do not know what this is like. And one of the things about family and friends that I wanted to tell you about, I can tell you all the things to not do. All the things to not do, because when we're fighting this, I'm fighting this alone. I've got 3 brothers. They've got families. We've got nada. We got nobody at all. That brother I told you about, I used to go fishing with him all the time. When these things were happening, I was very close to him. And we would have to drive sometimes 2 hours to get to the fishing spot, 2 hours back. Dad on the boat all day long. And my son would go out there with us all night long during all this. So he was full aware of what all was going on. He's never called me after my son made an outcry. "Hey man, oh my God, your son was raped? Oh my God, is he okay?" I never had one of those calls from a single family member. Can you believe that? Not a single family member. Not my sister-in-laws, not my cousins, not my nieces and nephews, not all the Christians in my family that are so Christian. Not one call, not one time. Oh my God, man, I cannot believe this is happening. Is there anything we can do? Can we pray for you? I didn't even get that call. Is he okay? Are you okay? We never got those calls. Those calls just don't happen. And that's where people don't understand how ugly child molestation is. People run as fast as they can get away from it. As soon as what you think that whenever you say my child's been molested, you think everybody's running forward. Instead, you see everybody's back.
And
They scatter like
I
rats.
don't want to label it as just child molestation. I want to label it as when you're going through a hard time, especially with the Department of CPS or court, people don't want to be involved.
Yeah, it is a hard time. I should have when you're going through a real battle, and I don't mean you lost your job and yada, yada, yada. I went through all that crap. I don't mean that stuff. When you're really, really, really going against something, people scatter like rats.
Yep.
That whole thing that you know who's in your corner, and you really find out a lot about people, and you really find out a lot about yourself when what you do. You find out all that stuff. And I will tell you, everybody in my case handled it wrong. Everybody did. And when I talk to other parents, it's the same thing with them. They've lost mostly all their friends. They've lost mostly all their family members. You know, like it's okay to call and say, I don't know what to say. That's okay. It's okay to say, man, this is so jacked up. This is so messed up. I don't even know what to say to you, man. That's perfect. But avoiding it and never calling and never doing anything at all and acting like it's not happening at all is not okay at all. It has cost my kids dearly. If we've had people as upset about child abuse as we do over the mask, over people wearing the mask or not wearing the mask, my God, we'd already been done with this. But instead, that's just not the way people work. People will argue and gripe about all those little things, but when it's something serious, like you said, nobody wants any part of it.
I wanted to remind you about when the supervisors watch your visits and how they get to leave.
Yeah, so I think I told you before, but we're on our 5th now. And we've had supervisors that show up to testify. We've had supervisors call CPS on visits. We've had supervisors that testified to my son being so scared to get in the car with her that he breaks the skin on her arm, buckling her in. So we've had all that. And we're on the 5th one now. And this 5th one, that outcry you just heard, that's not mommy, that's Amanda. Mommy hurts me. Yeah, at the end of that visit, okay, we'll see you tomorrow. And that's it. That's it. Another outcry unheard. Another outcry of Isaiah's that's just completely shut down and silenced that no one's even going to know about. This is an occurrence now that just happens all the time. This is Isaiah's life. And you know, I'm a grown man. And as much as this hurts me, and it does, it hurts so much, but I can take it all. I can take going to jail. I can take fighting. I can take it all. My son is 5, and my son deserves so much better than this shit. This is insane what they have done to my son. It is insane how much they shut him up and how much they silence him.
And I want to state that you're not just talking about your son. You're talking about both. I think the reason that you keep saying your son is because he's the one who is coming forward.
Yes.
He's the one coming forward for both of them. He's
right.
come forward for his sister as well.
Yes, he's made outcries for both, and he's the one that's outspoken. He's the one that's letting me know all the time.
I also want to state why you're on your 5th supervisor. It's because the other ones have been, when they do go to court and testify, they get thrown off.
They get thrown off the case. And for people I know this is a small detail, but remember, this is a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old that has to get to know brand new people all over again. And just think about his life. He has told sexual assault nurses, he's told cops, he's told literally everybody that we teach our children to tell, and look what everybody's done to him. Threw his ass right underneath the bus. Did not do a thing for him. So where do you think his head's at? And then he still tells, he's still saying it. And he still has adults ignoring him. And this
Yes.
is what's so wrong. Every adult, every single one of us, that's our job. Every one of us. Our job is to protect children. I don't care who you are. And I cannot believe, I've heard out of the supervisor's mouth, this is where my job ends. I'm supposed to write the reports, and that's where my job ends. Can you believe somebody would say that?
No, I can now, yes, but no, you wouldn't think so.
You wouldn't think any of this thing. You wouldn't think. You wouldn't think that you wouldn't have family members calling. You wouldn't think that you wouldn't have people like trying to beat down the courthouse with me, trying to get my kids out of this situation.
That's what you would think, that everybody would be fighting together.
Yeah, you would think everybody would stand up for a child. I do know if it was any of my other family members, they know I would be there. I have been there for other family members. So I cannot believe what my son goes through without anybody in his corner from my side of the family.
And I want people to know that we talked this morning about the reason that we feel so strongly about what people should do is because we're the ones going through it. You know, we aren't on the other side of wondering what we should say, how to respond. But I think the thing that people should know is just be there. Don't run away. Don't leave us alone. Don't, all you're doing is further isolating us and making us feel like we're in the wrong and again alone, and we shouldn't feel that way. We should feel like we have people that we can call and, like you said, pray with or just cry to, vent to. I think something that you had said last time, that people, it kind of gets old to them, and even though you're not repeating the same story,
Yeah.
It's something new every visit.
Right.
But to them, it's almost like, okay, can you stop talking about it now? Let's talk about what's happening in this life. But this is my life. That is my child. And my child is going through hell.
Absolutely.
And I'm not trying to ignore what you're going through in your life, because that still matters. But this isn't a story I'm repeating. This is a story that's happening every day to my child. I don't want to stop talking about it.
Yeah, it's ongoing trauma. And unlike everybody else, they're not in my rearview mirror. They're not out of sight, out of mind.
It consumes us. It becomes
Absolutely.
all we can think about. And I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for the people, who feel that maybe I made my life and my things bigger than theirs, but it wasn't about me. And this isn't about you.
Right.
At all. This is about those two babies who are enduring hell every moment of the day that you can't stop it for them.
Right. This is about them. Go ahead.
That is who they're looking to.
Yeah. Yeah, my son knows. My son knows I'm supposed to save him out of this. And believe me, it's every bit of my DNA just to walk to that car and leave him. And that's another thing people don't know about this battle. When you're going against corruption, it's not like I'm a big guy. I'm a big guy and I made it through jail and I can make it through any of those situations. And I wish that's what kind of situation this was, because I could have already finished this. That's not what this is. This is a thinking man's game. This is a spiritual game. This is something you got to think. I got to know that if I mess up, and that's all they're waiting for is for me to mess up. If I mess up at all, my kids' fate are sealed. If I think my family and friends aren't calling me and checking on me, man, my kids are done. No one's going to be fighting for them if something happens to me.
Yeah.
So you can't mess up. You can't mess up. You can't overstep. You have to know how to fight. You have to know how to be loud. You have to know how to get your point across. You have to know how to be factual. But you cannot mess up, because if I'm in jail, I can't fight for them.
Yeah. And like you said, this is a thinking man's game. This is not time to be emotional. This is not time to have a breakdown. This is time to think. This is time to be strategic and to plan and to set up exactly what we need to be 10 steps ahead of them. But you hit the nail on the head when you said it's spiritual.
Yes,
I 100% believe that it is.
It's the only way to explain it. When I talk about first of all, I don't want to sound like my family's against me. They're not against me. It ain't like anybody's not believing. I get that question all the time. Like, well, do they just not believe you? No, they believe me. Like, they believe me. They've been to court a few times. They've been here and there a few times. Like, they know this is happening, but they just have the attitude like, well, I can't really do nothing about it, so I'll just stay as far away from it as I can possibly get.
Yeah, ignore it. It's not
Ignore
there.
it. Ignore it like it ain't happening. And it gets to where that starts happening to everybody in your life. Everybody.
Yep.
Your good friends that you are able to talk to at first, you can't talk to them later on. They want to get away from that crap. They don't want to hear it anymore. It's too
Yeah.
ugly. It's too nasty. And I'm thinking, those are my children. Of course it's ugly and nasty. It's the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my whole life. But ignoring it is not going to help my children at all.
No.
That's what everybody wants to do. Everybody wants to run away from it.
Yep.
My brother, I know his heart. So I know my brother that I fish with, I know he's a good guy. I know he's a real good guy. But when he calls me and I'll tell him something as sensitive as, hey man, my 4-year-old just got raped. And he'll turn around in the next sentence and tell me some breakthrough that his granddaughter, that's the same age as my 4-year-old, some great breakthrough that she's making now. She loves doing this and she loves doing that and doesn't even acknowledge what I just said about my daughter. Doesn't even acknowledge it. And that's how you know it's spiritual, because you're talking about a 4-year-old that I can tell you love so, so, so much. And then you just dismiss my 4-year-old like we're talking about a damn banana peel. And that's
one thing you didn't state is, because I know you talked about them being molested by the mother, but you didn't say who's raping them.
they're getting molested by their mother and by their stepbrother. He's 17. My son's made outcries on both. He's been making outcries for his mother for 5 years, this entire court case. But the brother just came to live with them when this last outcry in 2019 happened.
I have a question for you, because somebody just put a comment and said it's so rare to see a father's story. So true.
Yes.
Can you tell us, because I even had a story yesterday where she said that her husband isn't ready to talk about it. Why do you think or feel that the men aren't wanting to step up and talk about this?
First of all, I really don't believe it happens to men as much, just because I believe there are more male pedophiles and males that beat children than women. So I don't think it's as common for women to do this. It's one of the hard things for people to wrap their head around in my case, is that a woman and a mother would even do these things. So that's one reason why I think that more men doesn't come forward. There is one man here that's in Tarrant County that's come forward. He has a special needs son that's also got a story where he's stuck in a spider web with the same judge. But yeah, most of them are all female. And I just think it's because there are more abusive men, I think.
Not even through abuse. I'm talking about parents who are struggling watching their children go, be removed from them. Why aren't the men coming forward?
I think some men's brain works different. I really do. I've had a good friend of mine that is I would consider him a really, really good friend, that told me straight up, you should just move on, man. This is ruining your life and you should move on. And he's a good friend of mine. He's got 2 kids that are grown that I was around during all that time they were growing up. I've known him 26 years. So I don't know if men know how to handle it. I don't know if men, I really don't know how to answer that. I don't know why.
Wow, that just kind of blew me away, but that kind of shows where other people's heads are, because their life is normal. They're watching something tear us apart. We'll just get rid of it.
Yeah, just move on from it. Like it's that easy. This is not about me. This is about what my son is going to be and what my daughter is going to be when they're 18 and 20 and 25 and what they're going to be in society. They have not had a chance to grow up and take a left where they can take a right yet. They haven't had that chance. And this is not just for everybody out. This is not just me against the mother. Yes, she is doing this, but it is absolutely this judge and this amicus attorney and this detective Rodriguez and this Sharon Wilson. Is absolutely these people that are allowing her to do it and that are covering it up for her, that are silencing my kids, firing supervisors, firing every single person that shows up on my son's behalf, and siding with a child molester and a child abuser with no proof of anything, never any allegations. I mean, it is just a joke. I tell people, like, I don't know if you know much about baseball, but I tell people if this was a baseball game, when we go to court, this is a 40-0 game. It's not close. We've got everybody on our side with only her standing up to testify, and that is it. And somehow this always happens.
Right.
So that's where people just don't know what real corruption is. Just like I didn't before this. I don't know. Maybe I've told my wife before, if I picked this book up on a coffee table and started reading it, I'd put this shit down. I would think this is nonsense. I would think there's no way. Yeah, I would think there's no way this could be real. There's no way they did this to this kid. I mean, there's no way so many people turned their back on this kid.
And that's where I do want people to know, like, when my thing ended and I had people come and apologize to me, get off. I had people come and apologize. Sorry, get off. My dog. I had people come and apologize to me and say, like, I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I'm sorry, you know, and I do have, like you said, I'd put it down because I wouldn't believe it. Or I wouldn't even want to, like, I wouldn't want to fill my mind with the negativeness of it.
Yeah.
And that's where I do want people to know we do have the grace and forgiveness for the lack of understanding. But maybe you can, if you're hearing this, maybe pay attention to it and maybe change how you are now and not make it too late for somebody to have to forgive.
Yes, and what they don't understand, like you were just saying, we're adults. They're not turning their back on me. This is not got nothing to do with me. Like if I go rot in jail, I can handle rotting in jail. They are turning their back on their little nephews and nieces, and on their little cousins, on their little family members, on little babies. Like that's what this is. They should have a whole army around them to protect them, and they've got nothing. They've got nothing. They live in terror right now. They've had everything ripped from them that was loving, and I was everything to those kids. And not only that, I'm the one that kept that little boy as strong as he was. That takes a lot. Like that's there's not a book on that. There's not a book that teaches you how to take care of children that have been raped and molested and beaten. My kids are completely his night and day. Isaiah just needs to have it told to him where he can understand it. And I could always tell he got it. He knew. He knew those bruises on his face, and he knew those knots all over his head, and he knew the burn marks on his back, and he knew that wasn't right. And he knew he didn't deserve it.
Well, and you were telling me that your daughter comes to visits now fully ready, makeup and everything, and she's 4 years old?
Oh, yeah. She just turned 4 in July. And, yeah, she'll come with all kinds of women makeup. And I don't mean like when I used to do that with my daughter, my 17-year-old, I don't mean like we put some crap on each other's face and play dress up. She comes dressed like a 25-year-old, glitter on her chest, perfume on, the whole thing.
Mascara,
yeah.
And you said even her outfits, right?
Yeah, even her little outfit was a little dress that day. And again, supervisors see this.
And
they watch this.
And you also said that she acts in a flirtatious way.
Yes, she does. When she told me that she had a new daddy on the computer named Alex. And then when she told me the face that she made when she said, I have lots of daddies on the computer, that face was not right. It was not the face of a 4-year-old girl. It was the face of a very flirtatious, too sexual person that shouldn't know anything about that.
And I want to repeat what you said. So she's stating that she has a lot of daddies on the computer. Therefore, she must be talking to a lot of men on the computer, referring to them as daddy.
Yes.
And like you said, this wasn't a 4-year-old innocent little face. This was I have a lot of daddies. I have, very sexual, very, from a 4-year-old.
I've told you before in private, my son and my daughter are night and day. My daughter that's 4, she accepts this as her life. This is all she knows is her life. and she accepts it. You can tell, like she doesn't skip a beat. The only time that she really, really, really shows is during these breakdowns. And she has these breakdowns on just about every visit. We'll find her and it's usually when she's really, really happy, which is the very odd thing. She'll be right in the middle of smiling really big or being really happy. And then all of a sudden, she'll go behind a tree, crouch down behind a tree and start pinching her wrist, start drawing blood on her wrist. No reason at all. Or she'll go underneath the picnic table and get on the other side where you can't see her and start pinching herself.
Yeah, you're correct. When we've talked privately, that's one thing that made me truly break down and cry was when I realized, and you had made a statement. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something like you said, that this is all my daughter knows. This is all she's lived with, all she's experienced. This is what my daughter thinks that life is. My son has at least experienced love and comfort and security and safety.
Yeah. Yeah, my son still knows that I'm supposed to protect him. Ari, nobody's there to protect her. She's on her own. At 4 years old, she knows she's on her own and she's got to figure out whatever she's got to do with those emotions. I've watched her do that her whole life. It is a shame what she's like. And it's a shame that so many people see her behavior and don't do anything at all about it. And the ones that do try to do something about it, they get fired and get moved on from. I didn't tell you about something else they did to me. So my two attorneys, John Polk and Jeff Branch. Jeff Branch had to get John Polk out of Dallas County, and Jeff Branch had to stay hidden and in the secret because nobody in Tarrant County would take my case. No one in Tarrant County would take my case. So he had to get this high-dollar attorney down in Dallas named John Polk. And they also wanted to hire a judge. This is where it gets interesting. They want to hire this retired judge as our expert counsel. They told me specifically the reason why you need this judge is because in order to get a corrupt judge, you have to have a good judge on your side. So his name is Judge Bill Harris. Didn't know any of these things about him when we're paying him, when we got him on the payroll, and when he's in on every one of our meetings. We don't know all these things about him. We're just trusting our attorneys at this point. That this guy sat right across from Judge Wells, my judge, sat right across from her, the hall from her for 24 years. They sat bench to bench for 24 years together. And he knows how crazy she is, and he's going to do everything he can to get this judge taken off and get this judge something done about this judge on our case. And they strung us along, they were in on every meetings. And then it just so happened that on one of my recusals, which is where you're trying to get rid of the judge, the day before I get picked up, that's when I went to jail. And that's when I had a 48-hour hold put on me. And Judge Harris just happened to be on that meeting that day. So I get picked up and have to miss the recusal, which means the recusal goes back to Judge Wells, which she refuses again, of course. And later on, come to find out when all the attorneys quit, oh yeah, Judge Wells and Judge Harris are very, very, very good friends. And they have been very, very good friends for a very long time. And I also didn't know that Judge Harris was responsible for a 4-year-old's death here. And that's the reason why he's a retired judge. On his watch, doing exactly what they're doing to me, they kept sending this 4-year-old back to the abuse, and they ended up killing her. And that man had to step down, and now he's a retired judge because of that. I had no idea. There's also another lady named Sandra Weston that has reached out to me. Her granddaughter's been taken away by Judge Bill Harris. This is just what they do here. They got a ring here to protect each other, and they filled my room, what I thought was my team. They filled my team with nothing but a bunch of snakes like him to let them know that I was really on to something. I was going to have a good recusal the next day, and they better throw me in jail, and they did. They threw me in jail. So yeah, this Judge Bill Harris is on different cases. This Judge Wells is on the case. You're going to talk to her today, Sarah Pike. This Judge Wells is the same judge in her case. The amicus attorney in my case, who's also covered up all these photos, covered up all these outcries, covered up all this stuff that's been happening, is the same exact lawyer that's doing this to her kids. She hadn't seen her little boys in 8 months at all. And they have it on her. She lives in Virginia. And they had to get those kids from Virginia and bring them down to Fort Worth. And they've been stuck here ever since. And they have her for speaking out like what I'm doing with you right now. They have her for 39 violations. So if she does show up to court to fight for her kids, she's going straight to jail. Just for speaking out about the judges and the attorneys. So that's another misconception that people get here is like, oh, this is just this big old custody battle. This is not a custody battle. This is not a civil matter. If you rape and beat a child, that's a criminal matter. That should be in a crimes court. You should go to trial for that. There should be investigations for that. That can't be covered up in a civil court by a judge.
Right.
And just let all these people testify and just on their way. You know, this can't be. This can't be the way that justice is supposed to happen. This is when everybody says, can't you do something about it? No, you can't do anything about the judge. You don't understand the system. She is it. She's it. All roads lead back to her. If you want to recuse her, you got to ask her. If you want to recuse her a second time, you got to ask her. Any paperwork that goes through, it's got to go through her. There's no going over her head. She's a district court judge. There's nothing you can do about it. And the other judge that was sitting in with me, Judge Harris, is also a retired district court judge. The DA, Sharon Wilson, who's very good friends with both of those guys, is also an elected official. So this is what they do. If a parent like me or Sarah Pike or Sandra, if one of us starts getting too loud, then the judges will just make a call to their friend, the DA, Sharon Wilson, and she'll have you picked up. I think I told you they lost my records, just like I never got picked up. They're gone. I had to go to the hospital. I told you off camera, but I had to go to the hospital after that. For laying on that concrete for that long, I almost lost my life. They told me I was going to have my leg amputated at my hip, and that wouldn't even save my life. They told me I was going to have my left leg amputated, and I was still going to die from kidney failure because that blood clot could not get through. So they told me I was going to die from that jail. And the only time so the DA, Sharon Wilson, was pushing max sentence for both kids. 2 counts of interference with child custody, both of them carrying 2 to 4 years on them. So in the middle of me fighting for my kids, the middle of all these outcries, the middle of all this atrocity and tragedy in our life, and I have this sticking over my head where she's really, really, really trying to push 2 to 4 years per child on me. And then when I testified that I almost lost my leg and I almost died, the next day the charges were dropped. And then, holy shit, what do you know? Now the files can't even be found. They're gone. That's Tarrant County, Texas. And it's not just Tarrant County, Texas. I'll tell you, I'm on so many groups now that I probably have 200 messages that I hadn't responded to from yesterday. I can't. It's just me. So I have no idea how to get back to all these people that want help. I want to help them. Like, it's crazy how many people are going through this. I know of 5 parents right here in Tarrant County, and that's only because they've come forward. I guarantee you there's a ton of scared parents in Tarrant County.
Yep.
And the same thing in all these other counties. I have people reaching out from Florida, California, Arizona, from New York. There are people going through this all over the place.
Yep.
And then worse, some die. Some die just like that little 4-year-old girl here. There's a justice for James right now, just a little 2-year-old boy whose spine was broken. And nothing at all. They just move on. And it's just like any other case. Gabriel Fernandez was a big topic for about how long? About as long as you can snap your fingers, and then everybody just moves on. It's just an old story. And it's not. That was a little person. That was a little person that was going to be something when he grew up. He was going to make choices to turn left or right. He was going to be a good person or a bad person. That little dude had a personality. And to everybody else, he's just a little story, and then we move on from that story. You know why? Because there's been another one. After Gabriel Fernandez, there was another one. And then there's been another one. And there's been another one. And children die doing this exact thing that they're doing to my children all the time.
Like you said, it's just a story because then there becomes another one and another one.
Move on to the next one. And then the other one's a distant memory. And we're upset about that one for just a split second, and then we move on to the next one. And it's happening that often now. It's happening to where children are dying all the time. And what do they expect? I think I've told you this. My wife, not my wife, the children's mother, sits in there and listens to all this testimony, all this craziness that my child has said that she's done to him. And then this judge sends my kids home to her. It is insane that they would do that to children. It is insane. helpless children, and they send them right home to the wolf. And never check, can't get wellness checks, can't get anybody to go check. We all know Lindsay Newell's not going to check.
Can you say who she is again?
Lindsay Newell's the amicus attorney that Judge Wells appointed on the court 5 years ago. She is the investigative arm. We've also tried to recuse her, which is a very, very, very simple matter if you look into recusing an attorney. It's not like recusing a judge. She's not an elected official. The only problem with recusing Lindsay Newell is that it has to go in front of Judge Wells, and Judge Wells has to okay it. So she hasn't done that. Anytime that we've done it, and just so you know, that costs a lot of money. Each one of those are 15 grand. So if anybody wants to know, like, how in the world do you spend that much? That's how. That's what they do to you. They put restraining, they deny my restraining order and then turn around and put one on me for no reason at all. And you got to fight to get your kids back. And the next time they make an outcry, you try to do the right thing and get a restraining order. They reverse it, put it on you. You got to fight to get your kids back. All the while, this takes, I don't know, 40 or 50 grand. And in the meanwhile, your kids are making outcries and nobody's doing nothing about it. And everybody's in court talking about a whole bunch of bullshit that doesn't have nothing to do with anything. This is what they do to you in the family court system. String you along, everybody points fingers. It's nobody else's job when this is absolutely your job. Like sheriff department, you know a child is being molested and you know the address and you can't do anything about it because the DA Sharon Wilson won't open up the case. That's crazy. Fort Worth PD, like y'all know all this is happening and you can't do anything about it because the judge says that it's a civil matter. It just does not work like people think. It does not work. You can't get out from under them. You can't do anything about it. The money that I did spend was absolutely wasted money. The best money that we spent was winning this anti-SLAPP motion so that I can freely talk about all this stuff that these other parents can't talk about. But other than that, every bit of my money was just burnt in the street. They've done literally nothing for my kids. In fact, it's been appalling what they've done to my kids.
Who is Chris Lamb?
My nephew.
He asked if you talked about the attorney, Cynthia Terry, and what happened with her.
Oh, no. Thank you, Chris. And he has been great support. He's somebody that is in my corner. Cynthia Terry was one of my attorneys. And this judge, whenever we had a trial date in 2018, this judge made me pay child support to the mother and also put child support payments on me, on this amicus attorney, through the Attorney General's office, which is illegal, by the way. Can't do that. And not only did she do that, but she doubled it. So what I was supposed to pay the mother, I was paying the amicus attorney twice that. I was supposed to pay the amicus attorney $600 a month through the Attorney General's office, taken as child support payment, where I was in contempt of court if I didn't pay her. So my attorney, Cynthia Terry, was going to go in and battle with this judge. And this was the day that I couldn't go. This was just going to be between her and the judge, and she was going to get this taken care of because this is illegal. You can't do that. You can't do that to a client. You can't do an attorney general, can't do a child support payment for an amicus attorney through an attorney general. It's illegal. So she's going up there to take care of it for me. And when she leaves the courtroom, she calls me and lets me know that she had just been made judge over the juvenile court and that she can no longer take my case, and she dropped me that day. To this day, I've tried to get my paperwork from her. She will not give it to me, refuses to give me any paperwork. Haven't gotten a thing from her. And she was made made a judge on my case. Tell me how corrupt that shit is.
Yeah.
Yeah, how ugly is that? Walked in as my attorney, walked out a judge.
On your case.
On my case, and dropped me right when she left. And that's what Judge Wells does. We've had testimony.
Allowed?
No, it's not allowed at all. None of this should be allowed. All of it's illegal. Me being on supervision with no reason for being on supervision, no outline of supervision, no allegations of supervision is also illegal. There's illegal things all across my case. But you know who has to look at it? The judge who did it. The damn fox that's stealing the chickens is the only one that can look into the fox stealing the chickens. Otherwise, you're a closed case. Most of my case is sealed also, by the way. So when you go to get copies of my case, a whole lot of it's sealed by the judge. Again, to keep us quiet. And it sounds, like to keep me quiet, yes, to keep my son quiet. People need to know, like, to keep my son quiet. Those are all his words. This is his outcry. This is him crying out for help from every damn body, and nobody has helped him. So this is to tell people, like, those other parents that are going through this, if you know somebody going through this, you need to reach out. They need people praying with them. They need people just to sit there with them. Some days that when I leave and my kids tell me an outcry, I need somebody to tell it to.
Yeah.
I need to get that crap off my chest. I need to talk about it. Like, it's not good. It's
Right.
not good at all.
No,
people don't know
because there's nothing you can do about it.
Nothing at all. And that's what people don't know. Like, almost all of us parents have PTSD from this. And that's a different type of PTSD. It is a PTSD of helplessness. It is a movie that you see over and over and over of your head of what your kids are crying out for you for help and what their faces look like and what they have gone through. I have watched my son in the middle of the night acting out exactly what's happened to him sexually, and it is horrific. It's so horrific. And then silence from everybody. Nobody wants to hear, not only hear me get it off my chest, they don't want to even hear if he's okay. Is he okay? Is he struggling? Oh my God, how's he doing with it? No, none of that. They would just rather not know. If they don't know, it's just not happening.
Right.
Yeah.
That is right.
It's a hard place to be, and it is absolutely a spiritual battle. Absolutely. There's no other way to explain this. I've never asked my family for help ever in my life. I am just the opposite. I'm the one that you call whenever you need help moving or help putting your shed up or help doing this. I'm that person. I never asked for help. And it is insane to me to see how many backs turned on my poor children. It's unbelievable. And I wanted to clear up that lady, Sarah Pike. I told you the wrong story. I did tell you that she went off to Virginia because they can arrest her. She's from Virginia, though. So just so you know how that story goes, she had custody of those little boys. That dad didn't have anything to do with them. And this same attorney, Lindsay Newell, went to Virginia and took those kids out of that state and brought them down here to Fort Worth to put them in this corrupt-ass system. And now she can't get them out of the spider web just like I can't. Her little boy just had a birthday, just like my son has turned 5 during this supervised visits, and he's about to turn 6 now. Christmases, Halloween is our favorite holiday. My son loves Halloween. I had to miss it with him. I've had to miss everything with him. And screw all that stuff. He doesn't get those talks he needs anymore. When he gets busted upside his head, he doesn't get somebody letting him know that is wrong. That is wrong, and it definitely has nothing to do with you. He doesn't get those talks anymore. And those are talks that he desperately needs. He needs to hear those things. Those things he can make sense of that in his head. When I let him know that was not his fault and he was being lied to, and that's not the way that we treat, do you ever see daddy hitting you upside your face because you're bad? Do you ever see Amanda hitting you upside your face because you're bad? Those are not true statements. Nobody gets hit upside their face because they're bad. Nobody gets hit with a spatula upside their head or a wooden spoon because they're bad. Nobody gets burnt because they're bad or beaten with coat hangers. Don't you ever, ever, ever believe that. And you could tell it kept him right. It kept him right. He could make sense of that. The sexual thing is just, there ain't anything you can say about it.
No.
There's nothing at all that a child can understand how demented and evil and jacked up that shit is. And then my poor son, man, when I finally do get him home and I have to tell him, like I just told him on a visit the other day, and the supervisor sat right beside me and listened to him. I told him about doing this show. And a lot of people knows what happened to you. And you were absolutely right. Everything you did were absolutely right. And everybody did you so wrong. Everybody that you told and everybody that was supposed to help, everybody did you so wrong. And our story is going to help bring a whole bunch of kids that we will never ever meet and make sure this crap doesn't happen to them. My son is a strong, strong dude, and this story is more about him than it is me or anybody else. He's told for his sister. He has told everybody you can think of, and he's still telling. Can you believe how strong that shit is after all these people have turned their back on him? And he sits with all these different supervisors, and they've all known, and he still tells. He trusts me that much. I was a strong, strong man before I had these two kids, but that little boy taught me how to be a real man. Unbelievable what people have done to him. And it's unbelievable what all the authority has done to him and how they've thrown him to the wolves. And it's unbelievable all the people that should be in his corner that aren't. So I really want to encourage people, like if you know a parent going through this, reach out. Reach out. They need people. This is ongoing trauma that my counselor's a trauma therapist. This is what she deals with, trauma therapy. And then she said our case is just so nuts because, I mean, you're not dealing with something that happened to you 8 years ago or 6 years ago or last week or 15 years ago. You're dealing with what you're going to have to, what you just watched this last weekend, and then get your mind prepared for what the hell you're fixing to listen to next weekend. This is ongoing trauma. I've seen my beautiful children change from those beautiful, free-loving children to being not okay, not even close to okay. If our first supervisor visit, you know, like we have sexual assault nurses and all these people, and then they put me on supervision. So that's crazy in itself. But our very first supervised visits, after 36 days of not seeing my children, my son says to the supervisor, "Don't make me go back. Mommy still hits me in my face." And the next day, my daughter shows up with a busted lip. You would think that with all of these people, that would seal the deal. Oh my God, the very first supervised visit, and he made an outcry? Nope, fire her. Fire her and let's get another one. Let's get one that's finally going to do exactly what the one that I have right now is doing. Let's get one that at the end of the thing, no matter what he hears, he'll say, "See you next week.
See you tomorrow. Have a
See,
good day."
I want my $300. See ya." I've got to pay $300 to hear this shit come out of my kid's mouth and to see their demise. But at least I'm not like Sarah Pike, and at least I get to see them. At least I get to make sure they're alive. Some of these parents, like her, didn't get to talk to her son on her birthday. Hadn't seen those two kids in 8 months at all. That's another great way to silence kids, huh?
Yeah.
Don't ever let anybody talk to them. That's what happened to my kid. His teacher's gone, his play therapist is gone, all the supervisors are gone, his entire family's gone. Stick him in a torture chamber and don't ever let his face out. And when his face does come out with you, don't take pictures, can't videotape it. It's crazy. A lot of people are reaching out.
Yeah.
A lot of people are reaching out. A lot of people have heard this. A lot of people is hearing his story now. It's out. Now, if they throw me in jail, at least his story's out.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And maybe after what I've said today, maybe people will step up and fight for him. Because that's been my fear. That's been my fear. I told my wife when they threw me in jail and when they told me I was going to die in the hospital, I wasn't one bit, not an ounce of me scared of dying. I am so scared to leave those children. I was so scared. I was so scared I was going to die, and those children were going to be left alone in that environment and never anybody fighting for them.
Your nephew brought up, I know you said this last time, but you can repeat it, how you're not allowed to ask questions. You already said that, you have a whole list, but you can't even say Hot Wheels. You want to bring up why you can't say Hot Wheels?
Yes, I do. Lindsay Newell was the reason why I can't say Hot Wheels. That very first supervised visit, when my son said, "Don't make me go back," my mommy still hits me in my face. About 2 hours before that, my son asked about his Hot Wheels at home. So Lindsay Newell brought up in court, well, that must be the reason why I made an outcry. Hot Wheels is a code word. So now I can't bring him his Hot Wheels anymore, and we can't even talk about his Hot Wheels anymore. And if he asks me, I have to tell him to ask the supervisor.
Code word.
Code word. Code word at the time, a 4-year-old. Now he's 5. Hadn't seen him in 36 days, yet we had a code word. Oh, one of the supervisors, this Lindsay Newell, brought up in court when we're trying to get a restraining order, all this stuff. Even that I have telepathic, that I can tell my son telepathically thing to say. I'm not even kidding. Hell, we got the judge saying that. Somehow with mind control, the judge is saying that on a video. Yeah, Judge Judith Wells. What a damn tyrant, huh?
What are you supposedly telepathically telling your son?
To make all these outcries. That's the way they're explaining them away. Oh, he said, "Mommy hit me upside my face because Hot Wheels was mentioned two hours earlier in the meeting." Take that away. Oh, the next outcry? Well, it must be something else. It must be because he asked about Miss Sandy and his school. Now you can no longer talk about school. The next outcry. Oh, well, it must be because he's asking about his mom and his brother. Like, treating you okay. Can't bring that up anymore. Yeah, my little son. They explain away everything that he says, and all of it gets more absurd than the next. That shit is crazy. My son said, "Don't make me go home. Mommy still hits me in my face because we played with Hot Wheels 2 hours before this." It's an insane story, and there's so much more of it. There's so much more of it. I told you this in private. We don't say half of the stuff that that woman has done to us personally in our house and our dog and things because it's just too much. It's too much for people to take in, so we don't even bring it up. We won't even bring that crap up. It's so minuscule and minute in my case that what's the point? What's the point in bringing that crap up, you know? That's the reason why my wife went on every one of those pickups with me, just to protect ourselves from her. 4 years of that. 4 years my wife would drive all the way from work to meet me there so we could pick those kids up and make sure she never said anything. That's the reason why my case is so well documented. There's no allegations or anything because we never let them a chance. We never gave them a chance. I knew what was happening right from the start. I knew right when they were making me give my apartment over and telling me that they were fixing to have my son sitting in a car 14 hours out of 24 hours every day. They were going to let my little boy do that. At the time, he's 16 months old. They're going to let him drive in a car for 14 hours every day of his life. We've had police officers testify that this amicus attorney and this other opposing counsel, Cat Borum, are on the phone with them while my kids are in there making outcries, telling the police that they have to let the kids go home with the mother, the one they're making the outcries against. We have that on testimony. If what I have been asking for all this time, if anybody at all will just do an investigation, do a really, really thorough investigation, I guarantee you will throw these bastards in jail. That judge and that amicus attorney will go to jail. This is not just unlawful. This is child abuse, child neglect. This is waiting on my children to die. They're waiting on me to be another one of those stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. And what scares me the most, like I said, my daughter accepts this. My son does not, and it scares me to death for my son. It scares me to death. I used to tell my wife back when we used to have all these busted lips and broken eyes and black eyes and all this stuff, and we used to have to go out there and drop my son off to her. And he acted like he hated her. And I used to tell my wife, like, oh my God, I'm so glad that he's so strong, but I wish so bad that he would just go out there and just act normal and just get in the car and leave. Because it is going to be so bad for him when he gets home.
Yeah.
What a damn shame. They're trying to take that strength away from him.
Yes.
That's her whole point, is to take that strength away from him. And when I explained to you about being molested by the stepbrother or what she's doing, what a difference. What a difference. You absolutely know that by the stepbrother, it's sexual. It's a sexual assault all the way. It's for gratification. It's for sexual. He has said nasty shit like he pee-peed white on him. Tell me what kid knows that bullshit, right? But when he explains what happens to him about his mom, it ain't got nothing to do with sexual. It is to break his mind. It's to break his psyche. When he shows me the way that she squeezes my pee-pee and my balls so hard, Dad, it has got nothing at all to do except for to break his mind. She wants to break his mind. When she puts things up in him, it's to break his mind, to break down who he is.
Do you want to share what they did to the guinea pig?
Yeah. After we had to go to court and a sexual assault nurse and everybody testified, of course, they send the children back home with her again. And this time when I picked the kids up and he made another outcry, along with this outcry came that the mother made the stepbrother get a knife, a kitchen knife, out of the kitchen, bring it into the bathroom, made my son bring his little pet guinea pig into the bathroom, and they cut the guinea pig's legs off. My son saw him cutting into the first leg and heard the guinea pig screaming, so he ran out of the room. And then he heard the guinea pig stop screaming. And then his mom made him come back in there and made him watch as she picked up that guinea pig body and put it in the trash can. Then we questioned her on it in court. And you can tell like she's not a good liar at all. So out in the real world, she's a great manipulator. But in court, she's not even close to good. She looks guilty as shit. So in the court, whenever she's testifying, they ask her about the guinea pig. And she's completely stumped, completely caught off guard. So she said she gave the guinea pig away to somebody at work. Oh, well, what's her name? I want to write it down. I want to write down the name and get a phone number. She can't remember. Can't remember who it is. And that's that. Judge is okay with that. Amicus attorney's okay with that. I mean, hell, we all know child molesters and child abusers. I mean, they're the most honest people in the world, right? So of course you believe those bastards.
Right.
And then the sexual assault nurses and cops and family members and all the other people that would never hurt a child, those are all the liars.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are you aware of this video on YouTube about that judge?
There's a bunch. She's even got a Facebook page that's called Impeach Judge Wells.
There's one that says, Family Court Judge Judith Wells says she'll stop inappropriate behavior with amicus attorney if reelected.
Oh, yeah. She's been in trouble for taking them on vacations. Isn't that funny? And it just so happens that our sheriff, the amicus attorney, has covered up all this shit for her and never even came out to the house to check on them. You would think that at least in court she'd have to, like, she's been on the case for 5 years. I mean, you'd think that she'd have to at least say like, oh yeah, this black eye, I went to the house and checked it, or, oh yeah, when he said that he was sexually assaulted then, I went and checked it, but no, she never comes out. She never checks anything. She just sweeps that shit under the rug for her and Judge Wells, and at this point, those some bitches are sitting on a mountain of covered up shit. The last thing they want is this getting out. This is when they try to get a gag order on me. And that poor Sarah Pike has run up against the same judge and the same amicus attorney. And I can tell her they will stop at nothing. They don't give three shits about your kid. Not at all. All they care about is shutting you up and shutting your kids up, and that's all they care about.
Well, I feel like we covered quite a bit today.
Me too. Me too. I appreciate it, like always.
I feel like we got a lot out. I was asked to join the radio show as a permanent guest. I'd like to have you on there this Saturday.
Absolutely.
So,
One more thing I didn't tell you about. When I started this petition, and when they started to try and shut me down, when they want to put the gag order on me, and we wrote up this anti-slap order against them. So we had this court case set, and all of a sudden in my neighborhood, a special unit that's not marked, an unmarked police car, put a surveillance camera up in our house, right on our house. So we called to try to find out, and of course nobody knows anything about the camera. And then all of a sudden the police start coming around all the time, knocking on our door, harassing us, wanting to know why I'm making threats online about a judge. I'm like, threats that she needs to go to jail? Threats that attorney general or a mayor or a governor or somebody needs to look into her? Those are the only threats I'm making. This woman's a criminal. This Amex attorney, they're criminals. These are crimes against children that they're committing. But as far as a threat, I've never made any type of threat at all. They even told my next door neighbors, I'm nuts. I'm nuts, and I'm making threats online. They started coming around the house all the time. So we had to hide out, Cynthia, for 21 days. And every single week, every seventh day, I had a new court hearing. Since they couldn't pick me up and take me to jail, and we were hiding out in another house, they just put the court date off again. So for 21 days, we hid out in another house until I finally got this anti-slap one. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be able to talk to you now. And there's a surveillance camera on my house right now, still to this day. I've got a picture of it if you want to see it.
yeah.
See if you can see it well enough on the phone. Can you see that?
Yep.
That's called a stingray camera. We had a guy from the CIA came that was trying to help us get around court paperwork on this judge, how to get around her courtroom. He let me know that's called a stingray surveillance camera. Not only can that thing see and zoom in and out, it can hear. It can hear us. Yeah. On our house for a man protecting his children. No drug allegations ever, no domestic violence, no criminal background, nothing's ever been, nothing at all. And that stupid camera is on that house for me. Me and my wife have to deal with that nonsense. One of my neighbors, she used to talk to me back when the kids were here all the time. She's got little kids and we'd always talk, and all of a sudden they just stopped talking to me. Well, I didn't know until the police started coming around again and they heard our story. They finally got to hear what was happening to us. But all that time, for about 9 months, she was scared to death of me because she was here the day that the fugitive task force picked me up, threw me in jail. So she thought, hell, like somebody getting arrested with people parked in the grass and stuff, like I must have murdered somebody. So she was scared to death of us. Now my neighbors have to deal with the cops coming around all the time. That's a lot though, dude, to try to shut you up, huh?
Yeah.
And I've told people, if you know about jail, they didn't intend on me coming out of jail.
No.
They did not intend on that. They didn't know I was going to be able to get myself out of that. And another thing that people like misinterpret about he said, she said, and all that. Like I said, my son was so strong when he'd get in the car. We didn't ask him. I didn't probe him. I didn't have to say like, oh my God, man, what happened to your eye? As soon as he had shut the door, he's pissed. He's mad. He's ready to tell me. He's pissed off about it. And my wife sitting right there in the passenger seat, like I said, all these outcries, my wife is part of all this. They've tried to single me out in this court. They wouldn't let my mom testify. They wouldn't let my wife testify a lot. They wouldn't let our family friends testify. They wouldn't let my nephew, they wouldn't let anybody testify.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Sure.
How has this affected your marriage?
Oh my God, you can just imagine what we've been through. It is it's been our entire relationship. So like I said, we met right when this was happening. We met right when this happened. So she's lived with these children all this time. And Like you said, my family and my friends and my own mother doesn't know what to say when I tell them my kids have been raped. I know nobody knows what to say, but it's okay to say, shit, man, I don't know what to say. That's all right. But it just got to where my wife was kind of the same as everybody else. Not, she didn't ever have to see the kids. She never had to see them. She never had to watch any of this. And then when would come home and tell her my daughter just got raped, it's almost like, I know, I've heard this. No, you haven't. Like, this is a new one. And this is ongoing. And we live this trauma all the time. So it's an impossible thing to ask of somebody. Like, everybody, people couldn't believe that we've made it this long together. It is unbelievable. I've been thrown in jail. I almost died. During this time, right before I went to jail, her father passed away, and we took care of him here. I took care of him. He was in hospice in our house. And that was a really, really, really tough time for me and my wife. Along with my kids are kidnapped across town, being beaten and raped and molested. And he's passing away. And then not long after he passed away, I almost passed away. And then not long after I almost passed away, her young brother did pass away, 43 years old. So we have been absolutely through it. She's been through it. I've been through it. We've been through it together. It has been an absolute nightmare. But my wife would always testify. She would always tell the truth. She has seen every bit of this. She knows all of it. And regardless, she would always be there for the kids to testify.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you can think of? I feel like we hit it all.
Me too. Me too. I just really want to tell people about, if you know somebody going through this, don't ignore this shit. This is child abuse. This is child abuse. Like, exactly the reason why child abusers get away with it is because so many people ignore it and turn a blind eye.
Yep.
So come forward, be loud about it. Be loud about it and be supportive. If you know somebody going through this, be supportive. The last thing that somebody needs is anybody else thinking they're crazy, when that's the only thing the court is trying to paint you as, is crazy.
Right.
It's a double-edged sword. Like, if my own attorney told me this one time, I testified about this court abuse, and we didn't go into all of it. It's very detailed. So I had to testify to this horrid abuse, and then he called for a break and took me in this back room and told me I needed to calm down because I was shaking too bad. And I told him, did you hear what I just had to talk about? And he said, well, I don't know, man. Maybe you're just more sensitive about these things than others. My attorney said that, a man. And he had no idea who he was saying it to either. No idea. When I tell you I got to be strategic and smart and godly and all these different things, he had no idea who Brad Lamb was when he said that. I had to bury Brad Lamb a long, long, long time ago. Brad Lamb died a long time ago. That man that has to walk to his car and get in and leave my son, that's not Brad. That is somebody that I had to become so I could get my kids through this and get them to safety.
Right.
So when he said that in that back room, he has no idea that I could have taken his life if I wanted to. I'm easily strong enough for that, and nobody would have known. And again, I have to swallow that shit down deep down in my damn guts and walk back out there in the courtroom. This is how people treat you when you're talking about a sensitive matter like rape and molestation and abuse. And screw all that stuff, that's physical. When I talk about my kid's psyche, I mean, it's devastating. It's devastating what it's done to their psyche.
Of course. And as the parents, the mom that I interviewed last night, you know, we talk about how we get humiliated as the parents with the children that are removed.
Yeah.
We're humiliated.
Absolutely. My neighbors think I'm nuts. My neighbors thought I was a damn drug dealer. Absolutely, we're humiliated. Our life has been drugged through the mud.
People don't believe us. They question us. They stare at us. They look at us. They wonder about us. They just don't get it. And
Nope.
It doesn't matter what you have to say. Your kids are gone. If you're telling any part of the truth, your kids wouldn't be gone from you.
Right. And I got to say, I remember I owned a gym. I told you that. I had a real successful business before. And one of my clients had a daughter that had dealing with CPS. And she told me about how big of a nightmare it was. And I remember thinking real clearly, like, well, if you didn't do anything, you got nothing to worry about. Holy shit. Holy shit. If I could go back and kick the hell out of that guy that thought that in his damn brain, how wrong I was. It's just the opposite. If you're the good parent, man, they're going to come after your ass. And
That's
if
why I'm
you're hurting those
saying
kids,
that's why we have grace and forgiveness for the people who don't understand.
right, right.
We have to.
Yep. And I try to tell people all the time, this can be your kid. This can absolutely be your kid. Don't you think like I did. I've got a 17-year-old daughter that this would have never, ever, ever happened to, not in a million years. And thank God she's got a mother that would never, ever do anything like that to her. But if you were in court caught up and it's the other spouse, or if you're in foster care, or if it's CPS, they just don't, those kids belong to the state. They do not belong to you anymore.
Right.
And they will do everything they can to try to push you and push you and push you, and then to push you more and more out of their life. Because if you mess up, that's what their goal is. Their goal is to get you out of the picture.
Well, like I said, I appreciate you coming on. I think we've got a lot talked about today.
Good.
I hope it opened up some eyes and ears.
Me
I
too.
hope people don't feel alone. I hope people feel heard because you came on and shared for them. You're not just sharing for Isaiah and Arya. You're
Right.
sharing for all the other kids that don't have a mouth, that don't get to be heard.
Yeah.
This isn't just yours. There's a lot of kids out there suffering and struggling.
And just imagine how many don't have anybody fighting for them.
Exactly.
There's a lot of those too. There's a lot of kids that just will never be heard. If something's not done, they'll never be heard. And we've talked about a fireman here that just went away, and people will do that too. People will just go away, or if you won't just go away, they'll make you go away. So yeah, you're doing a great thing. Getting awareness for something like this, something this big, it needs to be talked about. It is all over right now. Child crimes, child trafficking, pedophilia, it's literally everywhere right now.
Yep.
And it's like the damn elephant in the room. Nobody wants to face it. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to believe it's real. People aren't that sick. They are that sick. People are that sick. Yeah.
So, well, let's talk soon about getting you on Saturday.
Okay.
All right. I hope
Thank
you have
you.
a good day.
You too. Thank you.